This episode was recorded live at PodFest Berlin, an event powered by Patreon.
Please join me in welcoming to PodFest Berlin, It's Mental!
Okay, so it's Mental Podcast Breakup special at PodFest Berlin. Now it's a live recording on Monday afternoon 2 p.m. and we have a room full of audience. How cool is that? Yeah, so instead of a one-on-one panel interview, today we have a full panel, four of us talking about breakup stories, and our first guest is Anna Beros.
Thank you. Hey, Moni. Hey, everybody. Oh, thank you. Hey. It's great to see this audience. Very happy to be a part of this. I feel like I have a lot to offer in terms of breakup stories.
Cool. Looking forward to. And we have Sen. Sen.
Come on, you can do it. Sen.
Sen.
Yes, Sen.
Yeah, Sen.
Sen. Hello. I have so many breakup stories. It's been a long time since I've had a breakup, but they're all very close to me. Yeah, let's see what comes out.
Nice.
I'll just introduce myself then? Okay, hi, I'm Patrick. I also have breakup stories. I haven't had a lot of breakups, but each breakup had a lot of stories. So, yeah.
You like to get it complicated, huh?
That you could say that.
Okay.
So my first question is, when is your last breakup?
My last breakup, I don't know. Like, I think I'm in the process of breaking up with a couple of people right now.
So Berlin. I'm not sure if we're starting dating or we're breaking up, but something's happening.
Exactly. No, like there's one person that I'm working on breaking up with. There's one person that I'm basically working on breaking up with two people at the moment. But the last like proper breakup would have been I think I would call that. Oh yeah, in summer I was seeing a guy and that went bad and yeah. So I'd say like July was the last kind of more official breakup that I had. Yeah.
And how about you, Sen?
My last breakup was, I would say, 2 years ago. It was at the very beginning of pandemic. So what felt like it would have been really heartbreaking was immediately followed by the biggest global crisis we've ever had in our generation. So my tiny little heartbreak was swept up in the ocean of everything else that was happening. So somehow it also made it better. It made it like, oh, I'm suffering. Everyone is suffering. So, yeah.
I'm alone. Everyone's alone.
And Patrick?
I think my last breakup was in 2015. And it was one of those fun breakups where like you break up and then the person tells you like, oh, we were never dating. Yeah, that was fun.
How long you thought you were dating?
I mean, it was one of those relationships where you meet at music festivals and do drugs together like several times a year. And so I thought we were dating for like a year or a year and a half. And we were
Was that like
just
3 music festivals?
we were going to like 5 or 6 festivals.
Wow.
Okay, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Were
like
you only
8.
going to festivals and seeing each other at the festivals?
No, I mean, I went and there were, in hindsight, there were like a lot of red flags, but I was going to visit her sometimes. And I was calling her for like Skype calls and this type of thing. Again, afterwards, I'm like, oh, right. Like, I was kind of being inconvenient, but
you're still taking responsibility for it. Patrick.
I think that even though you might not have been officially dating, a breakup is still a breakup of some kind of understanding of agreement, right?
Yeah. I do also feel like, though, don't you feel like there is, I mean, all jokes aside, like, you should take some personal responsibility of, like, I was writing these, like super cringy, like, love letters, and it was like, I was trying to make her something that she was not. Like, if I stand back from the situation, I'm like, oh yeah, we didn't really have anything in common. We weren't dating, but I wanted to be in love so badly. I was like, you will be my thing.
How old were you?
Like 26,
Oh, okay. So how old are you now?
31.
So I think you are growing, right?
I hope so.
And what about you, Moni? When was your last breakup?
I officially broke up 1 hour ago.
Oh yeah!
Moni wins for most recent breakup.
Yeah, this breakup actually happened like a month ago. So my ex-boyfriend arrived home, announced that he cannot be with me anymore, and he left. And
Arrived home from where?
actually, I arrived home, and he told me he cannot be with me anymore. And
Did he give you reasons?
he said he has doubts in his mind, and he thinks it's a higher power tell him that this is not right. He shouldn't stay in the relationship with me.
A higher power. That is weak.
Well, how do you feel about it?
It's not you, it's God.
It's God, all right? It's not that I don't love you. It's that
No, he means
the
high.
winds said something.
He means higher power means like something he's subconscious, it's like something is not right. He doesn't know what is not right, and then he broke up with me, and he went on a short trip for 4 days, and then he came back, told me that he has commitment issue, and he realized it's not only about me. He realized he has a commitment issue for his work, for his friendship, for his family, and everything. As long as it become like stable, he get panic, and he couldn't deal with a permanent contract. He panicked, and he said, okay, he wants to get back. He wants to go through therapy, and he wants me to help him. And then in the last that 4 days, I read lots of book. I process lots of emotions already, and I'm like, I don't want to go back with you now, and I think we should take some time apart to think about it. And then we stopped talking for a while. The more I think about it, the more I realize life is like a journey, and on a train, and you go to your destiny. There's some people come on, some people come off, and you don't need to keep everyone who's on board stay on board. And
Totally. But background, he said he has commitment issues. After how long were you together? And you were living together for most of it, right?
yeah, we are 3 years together.
3 years.
Yeah.
After 3 years, he's like, this is too stable. You've been living together for 3 years. Now, like, at the 3-year mark made him...
Yeah, because we are at a point the next step is really getting married, and have a stable family. And
Was that what you wanted? Is that
no,
what he wanted?
no, it's not what we want, but it's where it's going. This summer we traveled with his family, both sides of family, intensively. I spent
Traveling with family is
yeah.
intensive.
yeah. A whole 1.5 months is basically different family part come and go, and always spending time together. So it become I really being part of the family, part of the tribe, and I think that's something triggered him. He realized, oh, this is probably the word forever start to appear in his mind, and then he get panicked. So
I think the fear of commitment is it's a really valid issue for many people. And I think it's what I fear when my life gets too stable is that it's always going to be like this. And I'm going to be locked into this situation with these people, and I won't be able to change, and I won't be able to escape. And then I start to feel locked in, and I'm a prisoner in my own life. And I don't know him, and I don't know, your situation with him. But I think it's also a way that we think about relationships these days, where it's just I'm going to be with you, and whether we get married or not, we're going to be long-term together, and you can't change, and I can't change, and we can't both grow in different directions or grow together. And it's today, the world is so quickly changing. Everything about our lives is different today as it was 2 years ago compared to 2 years ago. And it's I think the question, so I listen to a lot of Esther Perel, the relationship therapist. She talks a lot about how these days we expect out of our partners what we used to expect out of an entire village. We want them to be our romantic partners, our best friends, our inspiration, our support, our sexual partners, our fantasy. We want them to be both the ultimate, hero for our lives, and we also want them to be there for us, snuggling us every day. And it's just too much to want from one person, So it's like a question of, well, what is actually important for two people to have in a relationship together that they can be whatever stable means today.
And do you still have a fear for commitment now?
I think for me, the question of commitment is like commitment these days means something different to me than it did when I was younger. Before it was really like, this is the thing. You do this thing and you do it forever. That's your partner. You do that thing and you be with this partner forever. And I think now commitment is like commitment to a set of values and a way of living my life, even though I might not know exactly the thing that how it will manifest. So if I commit myself now to living a life where I pursue curiosity, where I pursue authentic communication, where I pursue my own growth, and I also allow the other person to do that, then no matter what, we are going to be okay on our own as individual people. And if we're okay as individual people, then we have a much better chance of being okay together. Yeah. But if one person or both people are feeling incomplete on their own, then you put these two incomplete people together and their relationship is also going to be lacking, and they're going to be like, oh, it's your fault, you're missing this. Oh, it's your fault, you're missing that. When really it's because we're not able to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, I think lots of people jump into a relationship because they feel unhappy in their life. I think it's very dangerous because you expect the other person to make you happy, but no one can make you happy. You can make yourself happy.
But I also think it's like there is like a societal element to that too, where it's like you want the other person to make you happy, but it's not even the person. It's like the idea of the person. It's like this thing that you watched in rom-coms growing up or whatever you watched growing up. But but like that idea, and it's interesting for me, like maybe this is an appropriate thing to say on a breakup special podcast, but like my partner and I are getting married. Woo! And she's not happy about it.
Okay. Clap too soon.
Yeah.
Clap too soon. Sorry.
No, but like, I mean, no one here works in the government, right? Okay, great. So it's maybe slightly visa motivated, whatever, but it really freaks her out. And for me, it's like no big deal because I'm like, well, if it doesn't work out, we'll just get divorced. And like that was always like my parents' kind of outlook on relationships and stuff is it's like, well, you just try it. And if it doesn't work out, you'll be fine. You move on, you do the next thing. And I feel like sometimes this idea of like marriage or finding the one or whatever, people get so locked onto that and it freaks them out. And it's like, well, just take it as it comes.
For sure, as a divorcee, yeah, where's the chance of that? Come on, yeah. I had the same approach as I guess your partner. I've never wanted to get married, but it was going to help a lot with visas for my ex, and I was like, oh, it's just a paper, it just doesn't have to mean anything. It's just like we're still in the same relationship, nothing changes. But then you get married, and it's like my husband. And the weight that holds. And then, like, this is my wife. And it's like, whoa, there's a heaviness to that. And there is this whole thing, like, your parents paid for the registration. Or, like, there was a party you paid for. There's this whole, all of a sudden, people see you as this different social unit. And there is a certain level, I don't want to scare you. But there is this social...
it's not too late. We could change our minds.
Yeah.
Talk me out of it.
Yeah, well, I'll try. I also just don't really... I think getting married to stay in a country, it's like try and stay there for your own reasons, like for your own, like on your own terms, so that you're not there dependent upon someone else. But yeah, so I was all like, yeah, it's just gonna, it's just relationships the same. And no, it really, like, leaving that relationship felt much harder because of how we were viewed as a social unit and this legal commitment we'd made, and also getting married cheap and easy, getting divorced hard and expensive. So it's like they make it much harder to leave. So it isn't just But yeah. Oh, good. I'm already talking about my divorce. Yes.
Ultimate breakup, right?
But do you feel like that divorce was hard? Like, obviously, there's a legal, like, it makes everything more complicated. Just as, like, if you break up with someone that you live with or whatever. I mean, more hard if you're married. But do you feel like that was also more hard because that was a more serious relationship? I mean, if you had decided that it was okay to make that level of commitment, you must have cared pretty deeply about that person. Yes? No?
Yeah. I think it was. I think there was just this added layer. Like, I've left many relationships that have been unhealthy, and this relationship was really unhealthy. But there was this added layer of like, well, you got married, like, and it wasn't even that the love was deeper than I'd felt with other partners. It was, a very intense relationship, but I think I probably, if the other partners that I'd had in the past who ended up not being good for me also needed that, I might have also gotten married, and I think the leaving process was, just made much more complicated by the legal framework.
So, how did you decide that okay, it's time to leave this marriage? Like, is there a trigger?
Oh yeah, there were lots of triggers there.
But if it's lots of triggers, how it's like one moment you decide okay, it's time to go forward, not turning back.
I had so in this relationship, my ex was very focused on his musical career, and I was very much supporting him financially with that, and working like 3 times as much as him, and sort of anyway, working more, supporting him, and that was fine. But there was very little space for me, and then there was a lot of like gaslighting going on. If I ever disagreed with him, he would start attacking me personally, or tell me my reality wasn't my reality, and things like this. And what actually kind of the trigger was, I had this friend much older than me. She kind of saw herself as my mentor. She was a colleague of my stepfather's as I was in high school, and she sort of took it on herself to like make contact with me every few years to see how I was going, and then she had gotten married, and she had been away sailing around the Mediterranean. So this is all taking place in Australia, and she'd been like away sailing in the Mediterranean, and she ended up leaving, like jumping off the boat and like leaving, like escaping in Sicily, and then like making her way back to Australia, and basically separating from her husband in this, what I found out, we met up, she came back and we met up, and I was in this horrible marriage, and she'd just run away from her husband. And this guy was super abusive. He was German, by the way.
No association.
Never have I met like Anyway, his name was Dirk. I'd only heard of bad Dirks before, but maybe there are better ones. But anyway, he So she'd come back, and she had just escaped this super toxic relationship. There'd been physical abuse. My ex-husband, I've got a joke about it, but he was violent, but he'd never actually hit me. But he would throw things at me, and there was a lot of physical intimidation, and and so we had all these parallels, and we met up, and she was like, Anna, because my parents had moved to London a year and a half before, my brother lived out in the suburbs, she gave me a key to her house, and she said, if you need to escape, you can come to my home anytime. And that shook me, and I was in this really, really horrible period with the husband. There was like I was like self-harming, and there was a lot of bad stuff going on. And finally one night he's screaming at me, and I'm like pulling my hair out and crying. And then the next morning I just packed up my stuff and went to her house, and that was the end.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And since then, have you sort of looked back a little bit at all?
Well, basically, my ex-husband tried really hard to get back together with me. He threatened suicide. He did. I laugh because it's like there's a pattern in my exes that threaten suicide when I leave. Still not funny, but oh fuck. And eventually I was like, we need to not see each other for I need to not see you. Then I decided to move to Germany, and then the week before I moved to Germany, we met up and we got back together.
Oh man.
And
Yeah.
how did you met up?
I was like, let's have a beer before I leave forever, and immediately it was just like he's extremely charismatic and he's kind of like heroin. Like yeah, I just got straight back, and yeah, we had this crazy week together. He drove me to the airport, and as he was driving me to the airport, he was like, "So when you're in Berlin, like maybe you could you could be like my band manager and like find venues for my band." And I was like, I'm moving to Berlin to find myself, you know? Like, I'm not, I didn't say any of this, but I got to the airport, said goodbye to him, and I was like, fuck. And so then I was when I got to London, I told my mum, and she was just like, Anna, what the fuck? And I was like, I know. And I ended up breaking up with him, sending a big long letter, like via email, and then having this Skype session, and then that was it.
Wow. Do you feel regret about the last week?
Nah. No, it clearly needed to happen. It showed me just how much the claws are in there. Like he as in there's something in that dynamic that was just very, very addictive and intoxicating for me. And yeah, it happened. And if I hadn't gone back, then maybe I would have always wondered. You know. But
So that's an intense story. Do you guys have anything to top that?
Well, I mean,
so let's make this a competition.
exactly, competition for most difficult exes. Something about what you shared, Anna, really resonated something in me, which was, so when I was younger, growing up, and I would hear people talk about abusive relationships, I'd be like, how could anybody ever find themselves in an abusive relationship? It's so obvious. You just need to leave, or you just never get involved with those kinds of people, until I found myself right in the middle of one. And the circumstances were that I was traveling by myself in India. It was 6 months of solo travel. I was just backpacking, and in the middle, 3 months in, I kind of got, I was also trying to find myself. Very stereotypical 26-year-old going to India trying to find herself. And I was in Goa, of all places, and I met a German on the beach, and there was immediately some energy, and in retrospect, he saw that I was lost and alone, and he saw there was something in there for him. I was lost and alone, and I was like, oh, here's someone who's interested in me. And then we got into something, and very quickly it turned into gaslighting. It turned into telling all sorts of lies, and because I didn't it was a different world. There were no reference points that I could use. Like if I'm from Canada, so if I was in Canada, I would be like, hey, do you know this guy? Like, is that kind of weird? I had no one really to talk to, and he started to kind of like psychologically isolate me from my friends and family, and started to make me question my own competences, to the extent that he would ask me, where do you want to go for dinner tonight? And I'd be like, oh, let's go to the Nepalese place. And he was like, you don't want to go to the Nepalese place. You hate that place. And I was like, okay, let's go to the Italian place. He was like, you hate the Italian place. Or we went to the Italian place yesterday. You said you didn't want to go there again. I was like, okay, well, where do you want to go? He was like, let's go to the Tibetan place. I was like, okay, fine, let's go to the Tibetan place. He's like, why do you always do what I say? This kind of thing, And it was one of those moments that I was just like, oh, I understand how this can work. It's like, you're not dumb for falling into an emotionally abusive relationship. It happens when you're in a phase of your life where you're probably not so sure of yourself, and there's someone with a certain characteristic, whether it's sociopathy or narcissism, who comes and predates on that.
Yeah.
And not everyone is a sociopath or a narcissist who that you have a difficult relationship with, but there are certain characteristics out there that they don't work with the same mental models as most other people, and when you're in a vulnerable state, it's really easy to fall into that. And once you're in it, then they feed off of you. Then it's called the ego supply. They use you to feed their own egos, and the more you feel depleted, the bigger they feel. So they want to keep you in their lives, right?
My ex-husband was like textbook narcissist.
Right.
Like my mom was sending me like
what was it like?
pictures of pages from books.
Yeah. What was it like for you when you first learned there was a whole framework to understand that kind of behavior?
I was like, too late. It was, I'd already left. Like, it wasn't during. It was a bit after, and I still I was still kind of in the web of it all, and there was still such strong connections and ties that I was like, well, he's a narcissist, but
He is charming.
Yeah.
he's so smart, you know. Did you see him? But like he was also like extremely talented. Yeah, no, it's just like these things. It was like, yeah, and you know, like I can,
Everyone's like that, imperfect. People are
Yeah.
imperfect. That's okay. Everyone's got their own constellation of traits, you know. And then you
Yeah.
like convince yourself.
Yeah, and it's more like it was more me thinking like, how can I not manage a narcissist to not destroy me? That was more.
So, Sen, I want to ask you, how did you get out of that abusive relationship?
It took leaving the country, so I right? Like
There's a
you-
theme here.
Yeah, you have to. I think like from the readings that I've done is you cannot fix this person, and the person may not ever want to help themselves. And if they do, it is a long process. You know, like therapy, under the best of circumstances, takes time and patience and endurance
And also like a willingness to like
to
a
look at
massive
yourself.
amount of
Yeah. So if if your partner who has narcissistic qualities doesn't want to do that, you cannot change the way that they behave. And if you start to realize that this is not working for me, most likely sooner or later, the most optimal decision is to leave. So I left India. I actually went to visit him in here in Germany, and then I went back to Canada. And then I was like, oh, now I'm home. Now I can articulate some of these experiences. And when I heard myself tell the story out loud to people, because I hadn't, and this is the thing, right? When you're by yourself, you even if you're journaling, you're like, oh no, it's just my thoughts, it's just my perception. There's no one there to resonate. And once you hear yourself tell the story out loud, you're like, oh wow, that sounds really crazy, you know. And then you get some feedback from it, and then you're like, okay, so maybe I need to look at this from a different perspective. So then I realized, okay, there's definitely narcissistic qualities there. I wrote him. I was like, he was, in Germany or India, and I was like, let's just stop this. This is not good anymore. He called me 13 times, left me all these voicemails, and said, "Baby, just open up the Skype, look into my eyes.
Oh, that's so.
All you need to do is look into my eyes, and everything will be fine again." And I was just like, okay, I'm done with this. And that was the end of it. But I remember I took because I had to be sure for myself, I took screenshots of all the messages that we had exchanged in case I ever needed to show someone that this is what crazy looks like. And it still took time to regain confidence, because after that you're like, am I able to perceive reality? Like, can I trust my own?
Oh yeah.
Right? Can I
The
trust my own
recovery
perceptions?
takes
Yeah.
a long time. Like, I had 2 abusive relationships in a row, and like the husband was the second one. And then I moved to Berlin, and I was so damaged. I was so damaged. Like I couldn't have and I immediately was seen a narcissist. Like I was immediately having this casual relationship with this guy that was so much like my ex, and I was like, what am I doing? And then I had this period where I just hated everybody. Mainly men, let's be honest. But it took me a long time to recover.
So, Patrick, how about you?
Yeah, I don't know. So my worst relationship that I had,
Let's. Not worst relationship, worst breakups.
well, the worst breakup that I had was also the worst relationship that I had. So
it's a
That should
whole
have been the best
package.
breakup.
Whole package.
I mean, I don't know. It's funny because hearing you guys talk about this experience, I'm kind of like, wait, was I in some sort of of this messed up relationship? And I kind of always just chalked it up to the fact this was my girlfriend from 14 to 16. So it's we were children, and I was always like, well, we're children. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing. Whatever. But yeah, I mean, she was my first girlfriend. We dated for 2.5 years. And I mean, as an adult, I can look back on stuff that happened, sometimes she would want me to go down on her, and I'd be like, we're at in your parents' living room. They're upstairs. I'm not comfortable. And then she would start to cry. And at 14, 15, I just I couldn't answer to tears. So anytime so then that became a thing. It was just always, if I didn't want to do something, she would start crying, and then I was like, oh, well, it's okay.
Eating pussy again.
Yeah. Which, yeah. Anyways, I could go off on that. But yeah.
Was that the worst part of that relationship?
Like you eating pussy and she's crying.
No, or she will cry.
Yeah.
Did she stop crying once you started eating her pussy?
Oh, she continues.
She started crying somewhere different.
So it was working.
But I mean, if you like that was like
It's abusive.
yeah, it was not okay. And it was also like she made me always like we would spend every like lunch and break together, and then we would get home, we'd have to talk on the phone for like 2 hours every night. And like again, I was 14 and I was like, well, this is like having a girlfriend, like this is what you do. Mom, this is what you do. Like
Yeah.
and like it was it was kind of a messed up relationship. And similarly to what you guys are talking about, the way I got out of it is that my best friend from high school, his parents took me to Mexico for spring break, and so we had no contact, and I was supposed to write her a letter every day.
What? Like you had homework for this relationship. Jesus.
And then of course I was embarrassed, so I was hiding it from my friend and his dad. And then like
'Cause
at the
you
end
knew
of
it
the
was
trip, I knew it was stupid. And at the end they were like, "What are you doing?" I kept telling them I had homework, and then I was like, "Well, I'm writing Shauna these letters, and I'm behind. I missed several days." And they roasted me, which was probably like wasn't super sympathetic, but was maybe the right response. But then I got to school and I was like trying to finish them furiously before I saw her at school, and then like I didn't quite have them done, and like she had like a real freak out, and she had like this stack of letters like from each day of her trip, and with like a wax stamp on each envelope. And yeah, it was weird. And so that was kind of the moment that I was like, okay, this is like not healthy for me. Like I'm miserable all the time. And so yeah, so I also didn't handle it well, but like I was like asking for advice about it, and they're like, well, it shouldn't come out of nowhere. You need to give her signs. And so then I just like ignored her for one night. Like I ignored her calls for one night, and she had like a meltdown, and like she was calling my friend's house because I wasn't picking up my cell phone. And so then that night I called her and broke up with her, and yeah, it was. And then there was also similar, like we had like a meetup to exchange stuff afterwards, and she's like, "Well, I'm like cutting myself now," and it was like, and I was 16, like I didn't know what the fuck, and like therapy was so like so many years in the future. I was just like, okay, I guess I'll just like fucking go be sad. Like I just went to a movie by myself afterwards because I was like, I can't be me right now. So yeah, that was my worst breakup.
Yeah.
But if that's your worst breakup, your breakups are really not bad.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it was still emotionally distressing.
I was pretty dramatic as a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And also, like, being made to feel like you are responsible for someone else harming themselves. It's really hard to distinguish responsibility. It's really hard to assign, like, okay, that maybe that's happening, but I am not the one who's making you do that.
Yeah.
And she's 14, and it's just like, it's like people are really young at that time. Like no one knows what they're doing.
100%. Yeah, exactly. Like it's not like I blame her, but then like 10 years later when I did get into therapy, it was like, oh, that was fucking a hard thing to process.
Yeah.
Slightly off topic. I'm just curious. Did you meet and see her parents, and like what the dynamic was there? Just out of curiosity.
No, I mean that was also something that was like her parents were divorced.
Okay.
I love therapy. I'm like, my mom's a therapist. I'm
Yay,
very pro therapy.
Yay, therapy.
But both of her parents were therapists, and it was like definitely there was like a dynamic. Like I remember we used to go to her dad's sometimes, and then like her mom would pick us up and drive her home, and like her and her mom would just like shit on her dad. And I remember being 15 and being like, this is not healthy.
Yeah.
And that was also a hard thing, is like she like had this really tumultuous relationship with her father, and I felt like sometimes it was like what her dad was saying, like, hey, I don't want you talking on the phone to Patrick at 1 a.m, which I was like, yeah, me too. And like, but I could never take his side. Like I always like if I'd said like, well, that maybe makes sense, she would lose her shit.
So we talk about so many bad breakups. When you break up even from a bad relationship, do you feel destroyed and sad and want it back afterwards?
So I've left a lot of relationships, and I think that after breaking up, even when it's a bad relationship, there's some sense of loss. There's a grieving process because it was something that was dear to you,
Yeah.
and it wasn't all bad. It was probably, like some parts were worse than others, and you had still good times and you shared intimacy, and this person knows you in a way that most other people don't know you. So when you lose that intimacy. So yes, it is hard. Like one of the worst breakups that I had, it was such a terrible relationship. We were only together for it was long distance 6 months, and then 6 months together, terrible. And it took me 3 years to fully process it. And not be like raging angry anymore. Yeah.
And with you growing older every year, like when you have new breakups, do you feel it become easier, or because you learned a lot from the past, or is always fresh, different type of pain?
It is always a different kind of pain. Like the pain is always there. You don't ever be like, whatever, take a shower, it's over. But I think that as I've grown older, and I don't know how you guys feel about it, I just feel so much more comfortable with myself. And thinking about my trajectory of relationships from when I gotta say, when you talked about the girlfriend who wanted you to write a letter, I was like, I see myself in that. I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure I would have done something similar to some hapless boyfriend. From that young unseasoned part of myself to where I am now I'm 37, the number of breakup countless. I just see that my decision-making process gets better each time, and the problems that I have are much better problems, So instead of being like, whoa, okay, people are threatening suicide, that was also something that was present in past relationships. Now I'm like, cool, I'm so much better at selecting partners who are good for me, who are not narcissists, who are not sociopaths. And then the problems become more circumstantial, and it's also with every breakup that you have, every relationship, every breakup that you have, you get a bit more insight as to what you truly value for yourself and what kind of life you want to lead and what you want this relationship to be about. And not all relationships have to be about commitment and marriage and making it until one of you is dead. Because I think that's how people perceive relationships. It's like, well, we're committed, so it's it's only successful until one of us dies.
Wow. Yeah. That's terrifying. In terms of breakups, getting okay, you're talking about your selection process. Yeah, I'm at the point now for the last 2.5 years. None of my started relationships go beyond 6 weeks. Within 6 weeks, I've already analyzed that it's not. And so there's a part of me that wonders if my commitment issues are getting deeper. But no, I think it's really that my sort of analysis process is much more efficient, and I'm able to see quite quickly, this was good, but there's a real gap here, and that's not something that we can, I can see myself acting out and becoming a worse person because I feel like I can push this person over, or I can, or this person has dependency issues, and I can see that really clearly, and I'm not interested in holding their hand through therapy, and they're not willing to do it, or and so that's been the last few ones. But the most recent breakup I had in January, it was dependency issues on his part, and then the straw that broke the camel's back was he was out of control drunk on a Tuesday night for no reason. It was he came to a show of mine, and then it was drinking and this crazy drinking. It was we're going home. It's due. I gotta work. What's but this was it was becoming more and more clear. This was when he would drink, it would be to annihilate himself, and then we get home, and and he also did some sort of disrespectful stuff, hit me with his bike, and then at one point I was like, okay, look, I'm gonna go home. I've got a really big day tomorrow. And then he was like, no, stay. And I was like, okay, well then can we just not talk? And he was like, well, if you go, I'm gonna kill myself. And I was like,
oh, not this again.
And I was like, I had my very first boyfriend actually tried to commit suicide when I left him, and he was comatose for 4 days, and luckily no brain damage.
Oh my goodness.
And then there was my ex-husband who did it, and then there was a guy that I dated in my second year in Berlin who actually, he threatened suicide when I left him. And then 3 years later, at the start of last year, he did it. And then 2 months later, his girlfriend also did it in the same way.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I went sober last year, because I was just like, I need to not attract people who are around me, and so when this guy in summer was like, if you leave, I'm gonna kill him, I was just like, wow. And it was crazy how quickly that just like I was able to cut that. But then there was still this grieving process, and it also knocked my sense of confidence around as well for a couple of weeks, because it was like, like how am I still attracting people that are so not okay and not able to take responsibility for their own emotions. And I sort of it and then also the fact that he wasn't willing to like go to therapy, or I said to him, look, I really like you, this is really, I've got a lot of love for you, but I can't be in an environment with someone that behaves like that, both the consumption and the suicide threats. And he was like, yeah, okay. And I was like, so you need to do something about it. Like, I'm willing to be a part of this if you do something about it. And then he just like booty called me the next 3 nights, and it was like, and so it was also a sense of loss of self-value, that he wasn't willing to fix his stuff up in order to like have a healthy, meaningful relationship.
And how about Patrick? Do you feel every time you break up, you get better at it, better at dealing with it?
I mean, I don't know. As I said at the beginning, like, I actually haven't had a lot of breakups. I haven't had a lot of relationships. So all of the breakups I've had were, like, definitely perspective shifters for me. I think just what I can say generally in my life is that as I've gotten older and, like, invested more time in my mental health, I've developed my toolbox and my self-worth more. So, like, when things come up, I can handle them in a way that's better than I used to. And so, yeah.
That's growth.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Toolboxes.
Yeah.
Toolboxes.
Yeah.
Toolbox is
But
growth.
I had a question for you guys, like, that is something that I'm always kind of interested to ask people is, like, as you start getting older, does that affect how your timeline in a relationship? Like, for example, Moni, I think you mentioned that, like, you guys had moved in super quickly. And I'm always interested in that because, like, you know, when I first, like, my big relationship that I had in my 20s, it was like we took things super slow because we were young, like, and so you wait a long time before you move in and take this step and then that step. And then as you get older, it starts to become like, well, financially, it just makes more sense, whatever. Like,
I massively disagree with that.
I had the opposite.
Yeah, me too.
I
me
was
too.
super impulsive when I was in my 20s, and now that I'm in my late 30s, I'm like, I'm not in a rush.
Yeah.
so I'm not growing. No.
I think different experiences, but for me, moving in with someone early is usually a red flag.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
why? Why do you need to be codependency issues?
Yeah.
You know, like, financials shouldn't be a motivation to fast track a relationship.
Yeah, I think after this relationship, I'm very clear that the next relationship I want to take it slow, like not jump on the boat before I actually know who the person is, if we're compatible. I think also like I'm in a better place. I'm more confident. I believe in myself more. I don't need another person to compliment me, and also I'm not lonely, so I won't jump into a relationship because I'm lonely. I have comedy, I have my projects, I have friends. So if I start something new with a guy, it should be something I can add on, not just because we are both lonely together. And I have another question. We talk about so many bad breakups. After the breakups, have you ever feel like you will never be able to find someone love you like that again, and you feel like you will be lonely forever, you will die with 20 cats?
Every time. But only for like, only for like, you know, like a couple of days or whatever. And like each relationship has its own like, this love was special and different, you know. But you know, you got friends, and like that fades. You know, there's also like the more times you break up with people, the more you're like, there will be. But like, I'm in the period right now where I'm like, will I ever fall in love in a healthy dynamic again? Because it's been a long time since I've been in a healthy dynamic with love.
So you are sure you are falling in love again. You're just not sure if it will be
I'm really
healthy
good at
dynamic.
falling in love.
What is a healthy dynamic?
Okay, a healthy dynamic is one where I guess a healthy dynamic is one where there is space for both people to develop differently, and that there's communication where both feel like they are respected and seen and you know, loved. And so I think it's just a combination of it's just if both parties feel respected and that they have space to develop.
Mm.
And that whatever agreement has been made around what that looks like, that's respected as well. I think.
So how about for you guys? You when you break up, do you still feel, oh, this is the last person, I'll be alone forever, or you already know it will happen again?
I think I've been through enough that I know there's always someone. There's always so many someones to connect with. I don't know when it'll happen, you know. So that's the hard part. And you know, your question was, will I ever find someone who will love me in the same way? No, you won't, because the way that that person loved you was unique to who they were and unique to who you were in that moment of your lives. And you're a different person now. But that doesn't mean that you won't find someone who will love you in another wonderful way, you know. And I think that's also a reminder that we're always changing as people, and who we are today is not who we were 6 months ago or even 3 weeks ago. And to kind of keep that in mind, that that even in a stable relationship for 10, 20 years, the way that the person is loving you is changing over time. And it's just like, it's a bit hard to grasp in our human minds, I think, because one, we have very bad memories. Like, if you were to describe the way that you were feeling as a 16-year-old compared to now, you're like, can you actually describe that, you know, or are they just words? Like, can you actually recall the feeling of that? So yeah, but I can really understand the fear of not being loved like that again. The most recent breakup I had, we also had unfortunately a really bad sex life, and I thought, like, I had
How long was the relationship?
2 years, like, but also kind of long distance. And at the beginning it was like, oh no, the sex is kind of like, oh, I don't know if it's gonna work. But the rest of the relationship was so good that it kind of carried the rest.
I
of, you know.
resonate with you.
Yeah. and then as it went on, I was like, oh, this is really starting to be a thing. Like, I don't want to have sex. This is not good. And then I was like, oh, maybe it's me. Women's hormones change when they reach their 30s and blah, and maybe I'll never want to have sex again. And that was a real fear.
Ooh la la.
That was a real fear. And then pandemic, right? And then, like, well, no one's having any sex. And you know, and thankfully, thankfully, you know, that, you know, we have technology. But thankfully that's different. Thankfully that has my theory about not ever wanting to have sex again has changed. I'm in a very good relationship now with many different things. But yeah, like those fears, right? Because you lose it and then you're like, I don't know. You can't predict the future. Anything could happen. You could die.
How about Patrick?
I mean, I think, you know, I don't know, like, the relationship that hurt me the most ending was, like, the first time I feel like I was really in love, and you know, there were unhealthy parts of the relationship, but there were a lot of great parts. And, you know, I'm in a happy relationship now, but I still sometimes now mourn the death of the inside jokes that we shared, and that, like, energetic dynamic, and that's, like, totally fine, you know. I think that's a normal thing. And I mean, after that relationship, it took me a really long time to you know, feel open or ready or whatever you want to say. But I think you also said something interesting about, like, what you're looking for now, that you're like, oh, I have, you know, you have your comedy and your projects and this thing. And I feel like this is something that I did wrong then, and I see, in my opinion, being done wrong, is that, like, a lot of times people take their relationship as, like, their main hobby. Like, this is my thing. And And I don't know, from my perspective, it should be more like what you're saying. It's like, it's something nice to have in your life, but you already have a fulfilled life without that.
Yeah.
So we breakup is hard to accept. But I want to ask for you guys, have you ever had a breakup like afterwards you realize it's a great thing and you feel grateful about the breakup in hindsight?
Every time. it's always a relief, you know. It's such a, because I'm not bragging, but like I pretty much always break. Like I don't think I've been broken up with ever, and so it's a hard thing to do. But it's always like you have to do it. Like there's no, staying with someone that's not right for you is horrible to them as much as it is to yourself. Well, same. But yeah, it's always a good thing.
And because every time after the breakup you feel, oh, actually it's a bad thing, it's a good thing afterwards. Does it help you to break up now? Like, do you feel easier that, oh, I know that later I will feel better about this?
Sure, I think it's connected to your sense of self-worth. Like I think the younger you are, there's these sort of dependency ideas that, and you have this identity as well. Like the longer you're with someone, you have all this idea that like this, that you're, you've got this joint identity that people know you through them. Often when you're younger, you're connected to their friendship circles, and so you've lost your independent friends, or you lose the friends you thought you had. And so the older you get, the more you keep independent friends from the relationship. It's not like you're hiding them, but I really work on maintaining female friends as well as my male. Like, I make sure I have my own friendship circle. And then it's like sort of the older you get, the more you maintain your relationships in a way that this isn't my hobby and my main thing. This is the thing that, sits alongside me and supports me and gives me intimacy and sex and that sort of special thing, but it's not everything. So each time you break up, it's like, okay, I've got my support network. I've got my therapist from 10 years ago. I can contact her again. I've got my parents, I keep my and you also maintain these habits of, sharing how things are going in your relationship. When you want to hide details about your relationship, alarm bells, you know what I mean? Like keep your people that love you, for you that are disconnected from you, not connected to your relationship, in the know. And so when it happens, you're resourced. And I think that's what you're asking.
And how about you guys?
I would not be here today if I hadn't gone through every single breakup that I did. And I see relationships and everything that I live through in life as like everything that I'm in, the people, the circumstances, fit me for where I'm at in my stage of life. So I know that as I change, and I think part of the reason why I've had so many breakups is because I've just changed a lot since I was younger. As I change, I'll just keep on attracting more and more fitting people into my life. So these days, it's not that I'm not afraid, because I'm in my relationship now with my partner, and like one of the constant fears is, oh my God, like I'm not going to be good enough. Our circumstances will change and then we'll part ways. And then I always forget that in the past, every single time that's happened, it's not like I lose a relationship and I lose everything in my life. It's like I'm moving into another stage of my life, and there's going to be all sorts of newness, including the potential for new relationships, but just like all sorts of things. So it's like I see it as like, a scorpion sheds its shell because it's getting bigger. And the shedding process is painful, but if it doesn't shed, it dies. So if you can go through that shedding process and emerge, slightly bigger and more mature, then you're more set for the world.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think growing older, I feel like I'm very confident my next relationship will be even more healthy. And like I am so much better at detecting red flag. And I just feel like also my self-worth grows so much. So when I sense something is wrong, something is shady, or something is weird, I don't engage.
You see it coming from further away.
Yeah. I know to keep a distance. I don't run into the drama when I
Yeah.
see drama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can really resonate with that.
Yeah. And how about Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said, like, all of those breakups and whatnot, like, they helped me become who I am, and they also like really helped me like look at my own shit. Like the one that I referenced where I was like, oh, that was the first time I was left. When the relationship ended, I kind of thought, I was like, like, man, there was a lot of stuff that she did, and then over the next course of several years, I was like, was a lot of me actually.
All
you
right.
know? And,
Oh, yeah.
and so I think every breakup I've taken something from. But something I also wanted to say off of what you were saying about this leaving your shell behind and growing to the next thing. I think one time I was asking. I don't have a dad, so my friend's dad who took me to Mexico. Is my
You
sir.
don't have a dad because he died.
Yeah, he was in the military, war hero. No, my parents are lesbians. But so I was asking him for relationship advice one time, and he and his wife, I don't think they have like the perfect marriage at all, but he said something to me that really stuck with me, and I think about it today still, is it's like, he's like, I feel like I've been in like 8 different relationships over the course of our 40 years that we've been together. And I think sometimes maybe if a relationship can succeed and go on, it's the fact that you can both leave your shells together and go to a new shell. And it's like, oh, this is a whole new relationship now, and it's not what the relationship was before. And so thank you, Hank Hollowell.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I like that.
Oh, applause break for Hank.
And like shedding the shells together. It's like, I want that.
Because like I think what is remarkable about that mindset is that you need to have this trust in yourself and in your partner that you can leave what you had behind and you can still go on to create something that's even better. And maybe that even better isn't together, or maybe it's together in a way that's different from how it's ever been before, but it's unknown. And in order to step into the unknown, we need to have some aspect of faith and trust.
Yeah. And maybe also it's not like, maybe it's great and then it's like not great, but then it becomes even better. You know what I mean? Like there's the waves to life and relationship. And yes, Moni, it's your podcast, please.
Yeah, so Patrick, you talked about the toolbox. So this is where I want to come into an end to this episode. So we know like a stereotypical breakup behavior: drinking, having sex, puking in the bathroom, lying in the bed for days. It's very common. And after all those breakups you had, all the layings you have, at this stage of life, if you have a friend who just broke up like a week ago and then now is like really disconnected with everything else, what's the suggestion you would give to your friend? Like what they should do to get out of the this dark place and get them together and being able to accept the reality and slowly move forward? What's the advice you would give to them? And or if you, finger crossed, like if you unfortunately run into the same situation again in the future, what would you do to keep yourself in a good mental space?
I think the thing that I would say, and it's like, it's always the worst to say it, but it's like, I'm like, oh, that sucks. And I know how hard it is. And I wish that there was something that I could say to do it, but it's like time. And I feel like it's cliche, but I don't know, from my experience at least, it's like, it's just gonna suck for a while. And you do need to be active and, try to do things to take care of your mental health. And it's good to read books and go exercise and sleep and all of these things. But also it's just time, at least from my experience. I don't know what your guys' is.
Something that I like through the years I've realized it's the hardest thing to do, but it's so important, is to ask for help if you need help. So often when I've gone through the big breakups, my mom, she studied psychotherapy, and I went to a psychotherapist from a young age and saw therapists when I went through all my crazy 20s shit. But she I think I can ask her like, hey, like she'll know that I'm going through a bad time, and then she'll make a point to check in with me every day, whether or not she calls me or texts me. And so if I'm in a bad place, I end up calling my mum every day, and sort of I've got that thing. But if you don't already have that, like telling my best friends as well, it's like, I'm not okay, like can you just check in on me? Can you just make sure, because you know what, like it also like not running away from the pain, but being able to sit with it. Journaling is a massive thing for me. I know a lot of men don't really connect with journaling, regardless of gender or whatever, but like journaling, just like getting it out of your head and being able to like move it onto it. So whether or not it's journaling, whether or not it's voice notes, but just like externalizing and giving yourself a time to articulate feelings, whether it be audio, written, or whatever, artistic, music, but like words or something that's like articulating the feelings is really helpful, just to clear the mind a little bit and have it out. And also, so you're putting it in an appropriate place, because also when you're going through a breakup, you can often just be this overflowing bucket of turmoil onto everything in your life, and it's good to put it into good places that it's going to be nourishing for yourself, as opposed to splashing your colleagues and children that you know. So externalizing the stuff, reaching out to friends and family, and allowing yourself to feel the pain and not run away from it. And if you fuck up and you go out drinking with, like if you end up consuming stuff, make sure you're with really good people that are there to support you, so it doesn't become this out of control, off the rails. Where am I? This is hour 17 in a bender, and I don't know where my friends are, and I stopped caring, and I'm just trying to destroy my... Yeah, you want to avoid that, you know?
Cat is laughing in the background.
How about you?
Oh man, I really resonate with what's been said already. So I think I have three things to say. The first is building off of what you said, Anna. It's gonna hurt. I think so. There's pain and there's suffering. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is what we create from the pain. And if you think that life is not supposed to be painful, there's going to be suffering. If you've just gone through this loss, whether you were the break-upper or the break-uppee, there's something that was precious to you which is no longer there. It's going to hurt. It's supposed to hurt. And if we can accept that, then we can learn to be with it rather than trying to get rid of it. And it's in the being with the discomfort that we grow into the next version of what we're going to be. And it's going to take time, as you said, Patrick. And these things can take really much longer than you expect. And we don't ever really know. And that's the thing with grief, too, is that it'll come, spike up, and then it'll go away. And you're like, oh, it's kind of okay. And then it comes back up again, like 3 months later, unexpectedly. And then you're like, oh, I'm not over it. And it's just kind of going to be like that. And it's like, learning to ride the waves of pain and memory. The second thing is use your body, because so much of this discomfort is like all these hormones pent up in your body, and like the worst thing that you can do is sit and browse social media until like 4:30 in the morning every day. And I've done that.
Browse is a nice term.
Doom scroll, like
Stop.
Sure.
Yeah,
yes.
Stop.
And we all want to do that, and I've been there, and I'm sure we've all been there. It's the worst thing you can do for yourself. But if you can get yourself out for a walk, go for a run, go for any kind of physical activity that you can bear to do. Like, don't do stuff that you don't like. Do stuff that you're like, I kind of want to do this, and maybe this is the occasion for me to start doing this, because so much of feeling good about life is feeling good in your body, and natural endorphins really, really make a huge difference.
That's
massive.
really
Like I
important.
totally. That's a big thing.
There's a third
I've
one.
got the last 2 years. Yeah, that's huge.
There's
Yes.
a third one. And the third one is I draw from Elizabeth Gilbert, who's the writer of April Love. She lost her partner, Rhea, to sudden pancreatic cancer. And she's a writer, she's a lifelong creative, and she says, no matter what happens in my life, I bring to it a constant creative response. So how can I use this moment creatively? What can come out of this? And so much art has been born out of suffering. What's something that I've always wanted to do for myself, whether it's a hobby or traveling somewhere or exploring this little curiosity that I've always wanted to do, but because I was in a relationship, I didn't have time for it.
Yeah.
And she says, like, when you're in a relationship, there's like one best life that you can live when you're in relationship with that particular person. But now that this person is gone and you're on your own, there is only one best life that you can live because of who you are by yourself. What are the steps that you might want to take towards living that best life for yourself? And it's in doing those things that you grow, and then you become eventually ready for another relationship. But you don't do it to be ready. You do it for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So be with the pain, do stuff that's physical, and do something creative.
Fuck yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
How
And
about you?
I think this breakup. How many more minutes have? Okay, so for this relationship, what I did really well is that the second day I was broken up at like middle night one night, and he left. The second day I woke up, I just feel I couldn't I can't recognize the reality. I don't think anything is real, and I was in a like it was the best relationship I ever had. We were so close to each other, and it's suddenly gone. I couldn't do anything. Like I was like a zombie. I lost my mind. But over the years of dealing with my own mental health, I knew that I couldn't stay in the house.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't stay on the sofa. I couldn't stay in the bed. If I do this, then I will sink into depression very soon, and it will be very hard to get out of me. So what I did is that every day I go out just in a park or something. I listen to audiobooks and just walk randomly or call my friends or just walk and for 7-8 hours. And magically, like after 3 days, like I start to can see different perspective. I start to see, oh, maybe it's not a bad thing. Do I really want to be in that relationship? Now it's ended. What possibility I will have after this? It's really helpful. And one book I really recommend. I think if anyone who's suffering from a fresh breakup, I recommend to them. This book is called Love Hurts. It's by a Buddhist teacher, and he's kind of summarized 4 things you need to do after breakup to make sure that you are in a good mental space. The first is to sleep well. I know it's hard to sleep and you will feel like horrible. Get some sleeping pill or anything. Make sure that you sleep at least 8 hours per day, and in a few days, and afterwards, you will be able to think again. But if you just let the sleep being disrupted, after a few days you will become crazy. You are already crazy now. You will become crazier in a few days. So sleep well is the most important thing. Then eat well, and do some exercise. Any exercise. Go out for a walk, yoga, whatever. And the last thing is meditation. But I don't think meditation is for anyone, but for everyone. So I think if you cannot meditate, at least eat well, sleep well, do some exercise, you'll be fine.
I just want to say, if you have trouble sleeping, exercise.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
also helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you, Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, just I feel like everything that that you guys said is spot on, and I would 100% agree with. I guess if I were to try to add something that I tell my friends and was my own strategy, and this is, I guess, not like a breakup strategy, but it's like after the breakup when you're like, I want to meet somebody, and like, why am I not meeting somebody? And I think that's a hard thing because it's something that you can't totally control, and we want to control things and whatever. And it's kind of going off of what you said, but my strategy in that period of my life was like, well, let me just try to be someone I would want to date, and like,
No,
So-
it makes sense.
Oh,
It makes
for me,
sense.
I'm thinking about myself. I'm a nightmare right now.
Yeah. I really like what you said about that because so much of the time you're like, oh, I want to meet the person who will have these characters. Like we all got a list, right? They've got to have this, and we don't ever have characteristic lists for like I want to be a person who acts this way and does this. You know, I think that's a really good approach.
Since it's actually a comedy podcast, so let's end on a comedic tone. So can we each of us come up with 3 things that that you can look forward to after breakup, like bright side of breakup, like what you can get after breakup which you cannot get during a relationship, like the things like, oh, think about this, why you don't want to break up earlier. This is so amazing. Like finally you are free. So what are the 3 things you think for those people who are suffering now, they can think, oh, actually there's a whole universe waiting for me.
Like, now I can cook with butter again. Like, fuck. And like all those vegetables that he had this irrational fear of, you know, I can cook with those again. I won't be finding like those long hairs in my shower anymore, although my hair's kind of long now. But yeah, that was something like, cleaning wise, you know, I won't have to clean the sheets so often. It's not okay, is it? It's not okay. And now I can like redevelop my relationship with my vibrator.
Oh, nice.
Good one.
Nice.
Vibrators, I guess.
Yeah. So you even have like a commitment issue to one vibrator.
Absolutely. No, they're for different things, all right? Anyway.
Different things. So how about you guys?
I'm thinking. I mean, it's like it's so particular to a specific relationship, right? So, I'm gonna use the one that was the worst breakup. So one, I don't need to be worried about being gaslighted every single day. I don't have to live in a tiny village in southern Germany of 2,500 people where there's 1.5 restaurants and nothing else. And and this is something that sounds a bit bad, but I can speak English at the level that I want to speak it at without needing to oversimplify things because my partner doesn't understand me.
Oh yeah. All those non-native speakers.
I'm sorry.
So Patrick?
I don't know. I feel like whatever I say, Anna's gonna laugh at me. Just kidding. No, honestly, when you said that you were breaking up, the first thought that I had was like, man, that's kind of awesome that you're gonna be able to just like concentrate on doing like your comedy shit and your work. And if I were breaking up right now, that would be the thing I would be most excited about. Like, like I can just do this and not have to think like, oh, how does this affect somebody else? Whatever. That's not really a funny one. So I guess if I were
shows before Beros. Anyway, like being able to do shows all the time and not have to answer to anybody is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess if I were to use my last breakup as an example, like, oh, great, I don't have to spend all this money flying to music festivals all over the country. And, oh, wow, I'm so much happier when I'm not, like, taking a shit ton of Molly 3 days in a row every 3rd month.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Also getting away from drug habits. Like, great. Like I don't have to get stoned every time I hang out, or have to be
I don't have to
every
hit
time.
tobacco out of a bong to seem like I'm cool.
What about you, Moni?
For me, I think at the beginning, the 3 things I'm most excited is okay, now I can do comedy and I can plan shows Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday again. Like I don't need to plan my life around a relationship. I plan life around me, and that's really exciting. And then I realized that I don't need to pretend I love his family and and making an effort of getting this family loving and supporting each other. That's lots of work. And I was like, oh, finally I can have sex again. I'm
Yeah.
so excited.
It's crazy that's the third one, but yes.
Yeah, like having sex again is amazing.
I'm so happy for you,
I-
Moni.
I
I'm
can
so
really relate.
excited for
Yeah.
your vaginal adventures.
Yeah, so we so now it's coming to an end. We have anything to plug?
Oh. Yes.
Plug
Anything
anything
at
to
all
plug.
to plug.
So many things. So I am running the first edition of a new show on Saturday, the 30th of October at Belushi's. It's called The Matchmakers. So for anyone that's just come out of a breakup, we will be matchmaking people in the audience with other people in the audience. We like sort of champion one person, and Shahak champions the other person. We try to match up a few people. We've also got some great comedians headlining. Also, I run a show called Adults Only Comedy Open Mic. I have my own podcast, Adults Only Comedy Berlin, and I run a regular show on Sundays called Grindhouse Comedy at the Wall.
So I run a podcast called Beyond Asian, where Moni has recently been a guest. And my second podcast is called the Life Itself Hubcast. It's a documentation of the happenings in my intentional community in Berlin. And coming up in a little bit, I'll be at the Mental Health Festival with Moni doing another live interview and different panels on transculturality and the impact on mental health.
Cool. Patrick?
Follow me on Instagram. At Pat Moore Comedy on all of the social things. I do shows here, and I have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/laughatpat. If you like stuff that's kind of funny.
So if anyone who just had a breakup or not happy or suicidal in any way, I'm organizing the Berlin Mental Health Festival, which will happen from 3rd till 10th of November, all across the town with different venues and events. We have workshop, panels, comedy shows, poetry, music, whatever. Check it out, and if you know anyone who's suffering or you are in a bad, best place, please check it out. Lots of events, they are free of charge. Just it's time to take care of our own mental health after breakup.
And all the
Amen.
time.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for doing this. This is nice.
Thank you, Moni. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you, Moni.
Thanks, Patrick.